Hello, everyone, and welcome to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. Now, you know that as soon as we give your students a device or any student nationwide, this isn't just in a certain community, that their behaviors can change. That's right. These devices that I call Ferraris can open up a totally different world for them with both mental health issues, body issues, all kinds of different things. And that I'm the guy that teaches people how to shine online. I'm full of positivity and gratitude, but we cannot ignore what it could possibly do to a student. And student being the age of 8 to 18 in my book. I've interviewed about 300 professionals who are therapists, counselors, psychologists, medical doctors, principals, superintendents, and we're about to meet one more, the smartest minds keeping your students safe. And my role in this world is to make it really easy for all of us to remember the things that we already knew, the wisdom we have inside of us, to pull that out and to say, I forgot about that. I need to reiterate that with my student to protect them from their future. And it may mean that we work extra hard right now, just a little bit. It might not be fun, but that we appreciate in the future because it keeps us from getting in trouble. All right, today it's an absolute pleasure to have Erin Bonsall on with me from the other side of the country. Erin, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Josh. I'm excited to be here.
Erin, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do professionally.
I am a therapist in North Carolina, and I've worked in a lot of different settings, but my most recent was I worked in a pediatric practice, and we specialized in adolescent medicine and provided the mental health care. And about a month before the pandemic, I went out on my own and started my own private practice. And I see teenagers, adolescents, and college kids for a variety of mental health needs.
Now, we met recently because I flew to the East Coast to your city and spoke to a group of students in your community at a church. We speak to schools, churches, private, public, and we met with a bunch of students to show them the positives and negatives and to really get all the students in that community realizing they can talk about this stuff. There's a lot that we discussed. First of all, what did you learn from the weekend? Because the students gave us a ton of feedback.
Oh man, there's so much that I learned from the weekend. We went into the weekend hoping that we would all just listen to each other and listen to the students. And I have found that's always the best rule of thumb. And that's what kids need. And that's what students need when they come in for counseling, is they just need somebody to listen. We don't need to tell them what they should be doing or what they should not be doing. And really just approaching them with a curiosity to try to understand better what their world is like. I don't think of myself as that much older than them. I am, but I sometimes don't think of myself that way. But it's a different world than when I grew up, or even just 10 years ago, prior to social media and all the other accessibility to technology that they have now. And we have to really just understand where they're coming from and the reasons for engaging electronically or with technology, or how important it is for them socially. I think parents often lose that relativity, is that it's a really important piece of socialization for teenagers today.
Yeah, so true. I'd love to share some of the stuff that we learned from the students and the parents. For everybody listening and watching here today on the Smart Social podcast, we had a 2-day event. There were 4 or 5 events that happened over 2 days. And there was some student events where the educators were in the back of the room and the students were giving feedback to me, and we were learning and listening. And it was just an open dialogue full of questions. And then there was an educator day, which Erin was a part of, where we had a superintendent of schools and we had a lot of people in the community. And then we have another day with just parents. And then we had a parent evening event where they brought some students to it as well. Here's some of the things we discussed. We talked a little bit about the comparison trap and how these tools are having us compare each other to each other, which was just absolutely devastating. And one of the young women in our student event, here's what she said that I thought that was so interesting, Erin. She said, Josh, sometimes I feel like these apps are creating the opportunity for us to feel like we're in the Bachelor, the TV show, and they create drama. They just want us to dig up and create drama. And I thought that was so fascinating because, if you don't know, everybody watching this, I know people who've been on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and the producers will just go, hey, I think they said something about you in the other room. Oh, hold on. The cameraman's getting ready. Hold on. I think you should march in there. And by the way, here's a cocktail to just get it all riled up. And this is exactly exactly what they do, Erin. And they will never tell you this, but they go, oh, you need to storm in there because they're talking about you behind their back. And this student said something so wise. She, without knowing that, knew that the apps are doing that.
Well, and I think that people are much bolder and braver behind the auspice of social media. And so even peers will say to each other things they would never say face to face, or they would never suggest that, or a lot of this like posting and Finstas, like it's to hurt people or to incite some sort of response, elicit some sort of response.
Yeah, we talked a whole lot about that, and you're so right. One of the other students said something really fascinating. She said, some students will be nervous to walk across school campus alone because they're very timid because they interact online so much. And if they don't have a friend walking with them, how are they going to go across campus? And that was just devastating, Erin. I'd love for you to comment on that. Like, how do we build more confidence in students because they're oftentimes on these devices that make us feel less confident in person?
I think that we've all been around students who are all on their phones, and they're not all necessarily engaged on their phones, but that becomes like the first thing that they can pick up to look busy or to distract themselves. And so then it becomes this sort of trickle down effect where everybody's on their phone rather than engaging. But let me back up to say that there was so many wonderful things that came out of the pandemic with regards to technology. The fact that we were able to online learn, the fact that we can Zoom. Several years ago, we wouldn't have Zoomed, wouldn't have been so easy to have this sort of conversation. But I do think that there's a whole group of teens and students who have really struggled to reacclimate socially since the pandemic. We had a lot of kids who were out of school for a year and a half and not face-to-face with peers. Technology is great and social media is fun, but it's no substitute for face-to-face interaction. It's no substitute for actually engaging. And that's where it's tricky as a parent, because we have to encourage that and almost expect it out of our kids, that we can't hide behind our phones and use that as our only means of socializing.
So talk to me about what you would suggest, or what's some of the biggest frequently asked questions or things that you're seeing with students right now, students you're working with, some of the tips you give to parents that you wish more parents would know about their students and social media.
Yeah, a lot of the students that end up in my office are struggling with depression, anxiety, or some sort of body image eating disorder issue. And you don't always have to meet full criteria for depression or full criteria for an eating disorder to still seek out help. And oftentimes students who are proactive about seeking out a professional to talk to do better overall because they are proactively seeking out well-being for their mental health rather than waiting until it's really bad. So I would always encourage people to seek out counseling prior to when they feel like they have a full-blown mental health disorder. But a lot of times social media, there's a link between a lot of screens and increased depression and anxiety. That doesn't mean social media is bad, but I think we have to take that into consideration. And sometimes we as adults know what's good for our kids more than they do. And so that's where sometimes you have to be the bad guy. And Josh, you touched on this, like you have to be the parent who says, hey, we're gonna set some parameters around this, or I'm happy for you to play Fortnite, but you're not gonna play 12 to 14 hours a day because it's not good for you. I think encouraging kids to be face-to-face with their peers, kids need access to their peers. And sometimes that access is social media, but kids need access to peers that's face-to-face.
Yeah, so true. I love what you just said. You said, parents, you don't have to wait until you're an 8, a 9, or a 10 on the anxiety, depression scale. It could be a 3, a 4, or a 5 in a series of what I'm hearing you say. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
One of the things that I want to recommend to everybody listening to this, and we have one for free if you join our smartsocial.com newsletter, we have a 3-page social media agreement or a cell phone contract that really lays out boundaries. So many parents right now are saying, yeah, I'll get to that someday, or it's fine. We don't have arguments. But I want to remind you, if you were to lease a car or lease an apartment, the landlord would require you to sign a 10-page document that says, here's what happens if you're late with your payment. Here's what this looks like. Here's what happens if you damage my walls. And you can be good friends with your landlord, but you also have a document. There's an old phrase that says simple agreements make great friends. And we recommend to every parent, and Erin, I want you to disagree with me if I'm wrong. We have a document, a social media document created by moms for moms. It's at smartsocial.com. If you join our newsletter, it's 100%. And it is pretty cool. It says, am I allowed to be on Instagram? Yes or no? Okay, great. Have I taken the Instagram course at Smart Social? There's a little course that people can watch, a video that outlines everything, a bunch of stuff. Like, here's where they're going to get you with screen time. Here's how to modify that. And then it says, what's my username and my password? And the parents save that so that if something bad were to happen, the parents can get in. And how much does this device cost? What is the replacement cost? What is my prorated percentage of the charge that the family's paying? And then how am I going to either earn that, or what's going to happen? It gets a little tough up front, but then all of a sudden the student has those boundaries that we hear so much from professionals that they want to know. I get creative in this box. What do you say to parents who might not have any discussion points around a new device and they just want to hand that over?
Well, it's a bad idea. And I have used your Ferrari analogy with parents in sessions multiple times over the past few weeks, because it's true. Contracts are a part of life. We sign contracts, we sign mortgages, we sign leases, we sign contracts with our employers. And it's a really healthy discussion, kids, around like, this device has been given to you as a tool that you can use, but it's not your right. You don't own it, and you don't get to call the shots about how it's used. So I do think it's important. But I think the flip side is, I think it's important that we as parents try to understand why kids so desperately want social media. I have an 11-year-old who thinks that she should have TikTok. She doesn't, and she's not going to. But we look at TikTok together sometimes. I get the allure. I understand why it's so enticing. So I think as parents, rather than just saying no, we have to seek to understand. And that doesn't just happen when we're ready to listen. It starts when kids are really young. We have to seek to understand what it is they like about what they're playing on the playground, or what it is they like, or what it is they enjoy doing. We have to join with them early on so that as students get older, they're more inclined to come to us.
So true. One of our big key takeaways from the weekend was make your student the expert and have an open mind. One of the things I tell people in our Zooms is there's two ways to approach something. Like, why would I ever want to retweet this? Twitter's a bad example. Your kids probably aren't on it. Why would I ever want to do that? If a parent says that, there's an instant psychological wall they put up. They don't want to learn it. And the student goes, I will not come to them because they are acting old. But instead, one of the things that we talked about this weekend with the parents, the educators, is consider making your student the expert and going, oh, cool. So you clicked that. So what's next? Teach me. And it almost lowers the barrier for that student to someday come to you and say, okay, I saw something inappropriate on Snapchat, Instagram, or I'm seeing somebody being bullied. My mom was a little bit open to setting up her own account. Yeah, she's not that great on it, but I feel more inclined to go to mom now instead of some random 13-year-old peer that's my friend who has zero wisdom, no offense, zero adult wisdom. We want them to come to mom. And that's what we tell moms and dads. You may be a busy lawyer, doctor, I don't care, but you're never too busy. And I'll hear this all the time. Josh, I'll never be into Fortnite. I don't have time for that, or Minecraft or Roblox. We always tell the parents, sit down, prove me wrong, sit down with your kids for 15 to 30 minutes and just say, teach me how to play this game. And we get an email the next week, Erin, that says, my child lit up. They got so excited that mom or dad was into something they were interested in.
Absolutely. We want peers to have access to each other and talk to each other, but it's even better for students to talk to adults, and even better to talk to professionals, because a lot of this stuff is complicated and tricky. And it's not that your best 13-year-old friend is not the expert, and your parent may not be the expert. Your parent can help connect you with an expert, but there are so many people that are trained and willing to help guide students through these difficult issues.
And I want to make sure our listeners understand that there's going to be a great time to be social with your students. And then Erin is so right. Every family, I'm going to make a bold statement. If you haven't ever seen a therapist, every family should consider it. There's always ways in which we have, whether it's some codependency or whether we have a little bit of trauma. Everybody has trauma in their childhood. I don't care if you have the most loving family. Even the most loving family might have too much nurturing, right?
Every family has dysfunction.
And we're just looking for the terms, the resources to be as functional as possible. And for me, therapy has been incredible on just navigating little waters of growing a business, serving people, helping people. So if you as a family are like, I'll just put it off, please, therapists are our best friends. counselors, you name it, find a licensed professional who wants to talk to you about that and help you navigate those waters. It's absolutely incredible. Erin, I want to leave you with the last thought. What's one more thing that you would love for parents to understand earlier than later about their teens, their students, and how they're either navigating online in a social or non-social area?
I think that parents have a job to teach resilience or help build resilience in kids. And this goes for social media, but it also goes to other aspects of life. Is we have to sometimes push our kids to do hard things and to challenge themselves, or we have to be willing to set the boundaries and hold firm with those boundaries. So it's a delicate dance to determine when to push kids who might be struggling with a little social anxiety and they don't want to interact, or they don't want to be around other kids, or maybe they don't want to engage over social media. We have to sometimes push them out of their comfort zone so that they can build that resiliency to cope, but also teach them to respect the boundaries, whatever the boundaries are that are specific in each household.
I love that. Teach resilience and push them to do hard things. That's really great. That's awesome. Erin, I want to thank you so much for being there for us that weekend that we were there in your community. How can people learn more about you? What is the website to your practice?
Yeah, so the website is just my name. It's www.erinbonsall.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for everybody listening and watching here today. If you're looking for social media resources, you can go to smartsocial.com, join our newsletter, roll over parents in the top, click on newsletter. When you join, you get a free 3-page social media agreement that's going to teach you how to keep your students safe on social media so they can shine online. Remember, social media is not all bad. We do have to have a level of knowledge to make sure your students are safe, but then there is a way to build a resume on there to shine online, to be social, to start building projects, passions, and getting that student ready with a portfolio someday. And that's our dream. And that's really my life's mission, is how to thrive online and shine online. Thank you, Erin, for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.